Greetings, this is the man who pretends to be Charles Darwin. Actually, I'm Stanley A. Rice, and I have just published a book that I want you to read called Forgotten Landscapes. The subtitle is How Native Americans Created Pre-Columbian North America and What We Can Learn from It. That is, the landscape of North America before Columbus was not a wild landscape, but one that was strongly influenced by Native American tribes carrying out fire management, hunting, agriculture, and even irrigation. And I've got other videos in which I go into those topics more deeply. What I'm going to talk to you about today, however, is something that happened when the Europeans first arrived. They brought diseases with them from Europe. The Native Americans, however, were relatively healthy people, and they did not have very many diseases of their own. So it was a very one-sided interaction. The Europeans brought lots of diseases that killed up to 90% of the Native Americans, but there were not very many diseases that went the other way across the Atlantic from America to Europe, the one exception apparently being syphilis. But anyway, what resulted is that the Europeans, when they came to North America, had the advantage of numbers. Not at first, but after their diseases spread to Native American villages and cities, even before the Europeans themselves got there. The diseases spread along trade networks and killed up to 90% of the Native Americans. So the white Europeans thought, hey, look, we've come into this empty land. Nobody else is here. We can take it over and use it for our farms and move over and live here. And that's because their diseases had gone ahead of them and killed the Native Americans. Now, why is that? Well, that's because the Native Americans did not have very many diseases of their own with which to infect the Europeans. However, the Europeans also took over Africa, but the Africans had their own diseases that killed Europeans. So the Africans had the advantage of numbers, and so when the Europeans took over Africa, African diseases killed them, and European diseases killed the Africans. The net result was that Africa is still mostly African. The same is true of Asia. Asia is still mostly Asian. But today, North America and South America as well is mostly white. Native populations are very small, make up maybe between, depending on where you are, 1 to 10% of the population. And why is that? And that's because the Native Americans were helpless before European diseases, having not been exposed to them before. The way that happened is something that I explain in Chapter 7 of my book, Forgotten Landscapes. I'll let you read about it there. It's a little bit too complicated to explain right now in this video. But anyway, European diseases killed Native Americans, but Native American diseases, which there weren't very many, did not kill Europeans. And so it could be, if that had not happened, then North America would still be mostly native, just as Africa is mostly African and Asia is mostly Asian today. And there were times in the history of North America when Native American representatives, cultural representatives, went to Europe. 2 of them were from the Cherokee tribe, that's my tribe. And one of them was Atakulakula, who was the uncle of my 6th great-grandmother, Nancy Ward, and he went to England in 1730. The English took him, they thought they were going to show him what real civilization was like, and they got him over there. He wasn't too impressed. And one of the things he was not impressed about is he said, where are the women? In the Cherokee tribe, women had an important decision-making role, but not in England. So he was not very impressed. And then in 1762, Ostinaco was taken to England and also got to see what it was like. So there were 2 times when there were Cherokee representatives from America going to England. And if Native Americans had not died off 90% the way they did, it could be possible that many of the representatives, most of them are white today, but many of the representatives from America to England and other European countries and to the United Nations and things like that could have been Native Americans. It happened before. 2 examples, Atakulakula and Ostinaco. And so the reason it didn't happen again after that was because European diseases killed so many Native Americans. This is the man who pretends to be Charles Darwin, the author Stanley A. Rice. I hope you look at my book, Forgotten Landscapes. Tally ho and amen.